Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is behind the steel curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you. It is Tuesday night. It is, oh my goodness, it's 9:40. But as a Steelers fan, if you still have the energy, if you're still not tired from being up watching that game last night, where else would you rather be right now? And with me, as always, except when he's not, is my big brother Rich. Rich, how are you tonight? Wait, Rich, where are you? Yeah, that's right. This is why we're starting a little bit late. Rich will actually be here in just a few minutes. He does, I don't know if it's called play-by-play or whatever, announcing of college basketball at the school where he works. And they had a doubleheader tonight, both men's and women. And the first game went to overtime, and the second game went to double overtime. That's why we got pushed back a little bit, and he's actually going to be jumping in here any minute now. But until he does, I'm going to go ahead and hit up the Steelers news so that way that can be done, because Rich doesn't like to talk about that anyway. He's like, yeah, whatever. Steelers news is, hey, they won. It was 24 hours ago that the Steelers were playing. So that's the news. That's not all the news, because in less than 12 hours from doing his, or right around 12 hours of doing his post-game press conference, Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin was doing his press conference for the next game, because that's the quick turnaround with playing on Monday night. There's no rest for the weary, and according to Coach Tomlin, he had no rest. He did not sleep, and before he was there for the press conference, because they've got to get ready to face the Atlanta Falcons. But he addressed the media that was there, because there was a portion of the media that weren't back in Pittsburgh from being in Indy the night before. And Coach Tomlin, did his thing, laid everything out. He mentioned Najee Harris as the injury. So this is one that a lot of people were wondering about. And it was that there was no new update based on the 12 hours since Coach Tomlin had spoken. And we might have to give him a minute to catch his breath. Wait, see what I did there? Have to give him a minute to catch his breath. But joining me now from his office is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how's it going tonight? And Rich doesn't have his microphone. I had him set up perfectly, and there he was. And now he's got to unmute it, and we should hopefully be good to go with Rich really soon. I might be able to unmute you here, brother.
Try that. How about it?
There it is. There it is. Brother, so I have to ask, did it go to triple overtime, or was it just double overtime?
Double overtime. So doubleheader tonight.
Yeah.
The women's game, we actually got started 10 minutes early. I'm like, this will be good. The women's game went one overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Switch over to the men's game. The men's game goes two overtimes.
And
I'm going to give a shout out real quick to head referee for the men's game, Kyle. Yes, same name as my son.
I thought it was your son.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Kyle, who lives in Pittsburgh. His physical address is actually Pittsburgh, PA.
Uh-huh.
And I told him we couldn't have overtime tonight because of the podcast, to which then before the game, we're sitting there talking Steelers. Mm-hmm. And he proceeded to give me two overtimes.
But the big question is, did it come through? Did they win?
The women's game that went to one overtime, we lost by 2. Mm-hmm. The men's game that went to 2 overtimes, we won by 3.
And most importantly, Monday Night Football, the Pittsburgh Steelers won by 7. But Rich, how are you doing tonight? Now that I gave you a minute to catch your breath, how's it going?
I am breathing barely, but I do have the sweet smell of victory.
Yes.
Whew. It has been a whirlwind of 5-6 days here for us.
Yes, same here.
And I might catch up to myself here in about, another week. Just felt like my hair's been on fire.
Yeah, today was like the first day that my family got back to a normal routine after the holiday. My son was sick before and missed school before Thanksgiving, and just everything with being out of town. For those of you that may or may not have known, that we had a death in the family. Want to give a shout out to Nancy. May she rest in peace. Her obituary even said how she was a Steelers fan. It's her son, our brother-in-law, who I share my season tickets with. That was the funeral that we had yesterday. A lot going on there, but I made it back in time for the game. You were pulling off your knee-jerk reactions. I tell you what, if you're going to have to stay up late to watch the Pittsburgh Steelers play, because we're East Coast, that's what we do.
Yep.
It's so much better when it's a win.
Oh yeah. So much better when it's a win. So
yeah.
Dave,
mm-hmm.
My day's been such a whirlwind, so I'm depending on you for the news.
Yeah, I had started the news. I said about Coach Tomlin's press conference. There's no update on Najee Harris. The only other news today was the Steelers made a move with the practice squad. They brought back Reynold Wren, a defensive tackle who they released last week when they signed Master Teague. They brought him back and released one of the wide receivers on the practice squad, Josh Malone. That's been it. Otherwise, it was players' day off. They were away. Usually, you get some more news and transactions, but being the morning after a game, nothing's really out there. No injury updates. Coach Tomlin did mention some other players. Apparently, Minkah Fitzpatrick was not available in the post-game press for a post-game press conference in the locker room after the game because he was being evaluated. Now, they didn't say for what. I don't know. Sometimes you think, when they miss a press conference, it's because it's a concussion. But that they didn't say that. They didn't say that's what it was for. They just said he was being evaluated for something. He was one that was mentioned. Let's see, who were the other ones? TJ Watt, Larry Ogunjobi, and Miles Jack were all mentioned as guys that were, kind of bumps and bruises, dealing with stuff. Larry O's been missing practices here and there for various things. TJ Watt obviously coming back from the injury. Miles Jack, that was the New Orleans game where he didn't even play a snap, right? Because the one where he was active but didn't play at all. So he's coming back from injury. So those are just some guys that they're monitoring and playing on Monday. I have a feeling they're not going to practice tomorrow. And Coach Tomlin even said they might adjust how they do practice to better accommodate some of those people. So that tells me they're not going to have an overly physical practice on Wednesday. It's going to be more of a mental practice on Wednesday, which is probably better for them. That's the whole reason for the name of our podcast tonight. I said the Steelers need a short stack after a big win in Indy. And although I'm not talking about pancakes, what do I mean by a short stack?
Pancakes.
Pancakes sounds good.
Sorry, I haven't had dinner yet.
You haven't had dinner yet. I had a feeling. On a short week, can they stack a win? That's what I'm ultimately looking to go with that one. They've got the win in Indy, and the reason it's a big win, any win this year for the Steelers is a big win. Any win this year for the Steelers is a big win. But this win was so big. Do you know that the Steelers went from being 1.5 point underdogs to now 1.5 point road favorites against Atlanta next week?
Amazing what a win on the road in prime time can do for your line.
Yeah, well, not only that, but sorry. Someone said that you can't shave the stash if the Steelers win again. Sorry. Kenny Pickett, and I'll have this article out tomorrow. His PFF score, if you're on social media or anything at all, was through the roof this week. Now he had no touchdowns. He only had 176.
8.
I think. Was it 8? You know what? I had the stats up right in front of me, and it timed out, and I had to sign back in. Yes, actually, it's 174. It was the wrong way. 174. Wrong. So you just knew 6 was wrong. 174 passing yards, but he was 20 of 28. He had a PFF score of 88.5, where I saw a report that that's the highest score of a Steelers quarterback since I think 2018. One place reported that it was the highest. It was the highest score of any quarterback in Week 12. That was actually the second highest score of any quarterback in Week 12. It was the highest score in a winning effort of any quarterback in Week 12 because Lamar Jackson actually had a very high score, but I don't care if he has a high score because they didn't win. And I don't care if Kenny Pickett has a high PFF score because the Steelers won. But Kenny Pickett overall, I don't think this was some legendary performance. It's not like he went out there and tore up. But what did you ultimately think of his performance from last night?
It was clean. That's the first word that comes to mind for me. It was a clean performance from Kenny Pickett. And I'm not just talking that he didn't turn the ball over. I thought he had some real nice throws. Was doing better at getting the ball in the location that he wanted to. Was it in the Slack channel today? Was it Jeffrey that brought up about his couple of high throws? It was funny. They both kind of had something in common in terms of, I think the way he was moving before he threw the ball. And he really just didn't get his lower body set the way that it needed to be, which caused the ball to sail on the two high ones. He really just, did what he needed to do, used his feet when he needed to, didn't look to when he ran the ball, didn't necessarily need to gain, 25 yards, but, when things broke down and he scrambled, get 7-8 yards, wonderful.
Yeah, and I thought he was very efficient. I thought he made good decisions. I liked the designed quarterback runs. I liked the gloss. Was there 2 or 3? Daniel J. last night, we're trying to remember on the.
I can only remember 2. The only thing I didn't like about the second one was you were near the touchdown zone.
Yeah, that was
the defense wasn't going to back up all that.
Wasn't going to be dropped as far off. Yes,
but
you're right. But I don't think they were expecting it either.
You know what? I would tell you what Coach Tomlin would probably say about Kenny Pickett's game last night.
He didn't kill us.
He didn't kill us. That's what he didn't kill us. Coach Tomlin would say, "Hey, he made the throws and the plays we expected him to make." Yeah.
Or it's not like he was making throws into these crazy windows because if not, you'd hear Coach
everybody else
Tomlin
gets a little
yelling.
tight.
It's not that it was a little tight. So sorry.
Although the 2-point conversion pass to
I thought that was great.
was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, he and Pickens were on the same wavelength there, and that was really good.
Yes.
And that was actually a really tight window to get that ball into.
Yes. Now I would like to I want to talk about some specific times of the game and what it comes with Kenny Pickett. But before we do that, I feel like I have to ask you the rushing attack with Najee Harris in and out of the game in the first half. You could tell he was trying to come in and go until finally it was too much and they had to take him off the field. But that the Steelers had the ball and it was just before halftime and he's going into the locker room. But Benny Snell Jr. got his first offensive snaps. Last week he had 3 snaps, no touches. Got his first carries this week. Anthony McFarland Jr. was brought up from the practice squad because Jalen Warren was ruled out. Both those guys, I think, did an excellent job. Give me your overall thoughts on what I like to call the juniors. Both Benny Snell Jr. and Anthony McFarland Jr.
Here's what I like about both of them. And it's funny because actually Najee's getting back to doing this. It's like they all took a look at that undrafted rook and said, maybe we need to just get the ball and go.
Yeah.
And, actually, and what I actually really liked about Benny Snell, a couple of his runs, is he took the ball and went, but saw the cutback lane as he got through the line and made the cutback for the extra yards. He didn't pause or anything to look for one. It's just as he hit, he realized, oh, let me slide to the left just a tad and get some more yards. And he did it.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring it up right now because I'd really like to give the exact quote of Coach Tomlin, what he said about the 2 players. I thought this was really a good way to put it. He says, and this is what he said. He was asked specifically, you'll be able to see this tomorrow in my Players Mentioned article. He said, what did you like most about what those two guys did, was what he said. He said, I thought they stayed within their skill set. Benny is a deliberate one-cut downhill runner. Ant Mac, who we know, Anthony McFarland Jr., is bursty and explosive and good in space. I just thought they leaned on their strengths.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, in terms of Ant Mac, the thing I saw and liked the most was we finally got a screen called when the other team didn't have it totally figured out. We were going to run a screen, and it looked nice.
Yes, screen to a running back and looked nice. I thought they came in and the running game didn't lose a beat. They were more efficient runners than Najee Harris, but Najee Harris was also trying to fight through an injury. Remember that some people are like, oh, look, Najee Harris couldn't do what they did. Najee Harris was hurting. He was getting tackled and coming up and going to the sidelines because he was dealing with something. So it was wise, because they were being effective, that he wasn't out there, because they were being more effective because they weren't running injured. Really liked what they did in the running game. Now, we focused on the offense. We're going to stay focused on the offense for a little bit here as we go,
sure,
because I want to ask you a question. Let's start with just the first half.
Okay.
We can bring up the defense. 0 yards surrendered in the first quarter.
Yeah,
0 yards. 7 yards rushing, -7 yards passing, no completions, 1 sack. That was pretty special to do that. And the offense, the only time they punted was after the interception, and that was they were in at the edge of field goal range and then gave up 2 sacks in 3 plays. Other than that, that's what they were doing in the first half. Are you concerned that as dominant as the Steelers were in that first half, that they only had 16 points to speak for themselves?
Not overly. Not overly.
I am a little bit.
No, because if you stop thinking, yes, the defense was dominant, but minus the one possession. The Steelers offense had one, what I consider to be pretty bad possession in the first half, and it was off the Pierre interception.
Yeah.
Where the penalties and the sacks even took them out of field goal range. They ended up having to punt.
Yeah.
Okay. Other than that, I wasn't all that upset. If you told me that this Steelers team, but let's just, play it strictly by a numbers thing here. If you told me that this Steelers team could be a good enough team to score 16 points a half, meaning 32 points a game, would you take it?
I would, but my thing is you're not going to have the same opportunities all game to just double the points. They had their opportunities in the first half much more than in the second half.
Well, they might have had more opportunities. When you don't take
advantage of those opportunities,
they might have had more opportunities in the second half to score several more points if we quit going 3 and out.
Yeah, I to me, when you put points on the board, I am even okay with a 1-to-1 ratio of touchdown to field goal. I'm okay with that. If you get one drive that's a touchdown, one that's a field goal, one's a touchdown, one's a field goal, rather than one touchdown and 3 times having to settle for a field goal, that's ultimately what I'd like to. I would have liked to see them put one more of those scoring drives in the touchdown zone. And if they would have done that, I would have called that almost, as close to perfect as a young team could be, but with reasonable expectations. That's the one thing with me is I would have really liked to see them have 20 points in that half, because I felt that they were set up to do it. They just couldn't quite finish it off. Even just one of those. So you could say it's nitpicking, but I'm also saying there could be times where because they had to settle for 3 field goals in a half, that could come back and bite them. So it didn't.
Now,
it was fine this game, but that's something moving forward.
Okay, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
I would trust, especially after what we had for a performance for the defense in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
I would have trusted that as points. See, my disappointment comes in the second half defense.
Yeah. Well, let's just say the second half did not get going in the right direction.
Correct.
I was saying before, I think I said it in the Slack channel, I was like, does Miles Boykin as a gunner being out, is he missed that bad on kickoffs? But I didn't think about it until Coach Tomlin talked about it today, that 2 of their better guys on kickoffs are Miles Boykin and Robert Spillane. They were missing, I would say, 2 of their top 4 defenders on kickoffs. Now, guess what? It's special teams. You've got to be able to step up, and the next man should be able to take care of it. So that, and they knew they were going to, well, they were both questionable, but they had a good idea that they were both going to be out. So that's one that bothered me. Do you think maybe they were surprised that a kick 8 yards deep into the end zone was brought out?
Yes.
You know?
I was.
Yeah. I don't know if the players running down the field know how deep the ball is going to know all of it.
Right.
Yeah. But, I saw some people complaining, you could talk about the kicker not missing any kicks. Those kickoffs that they were allowed to return. Who runs it out 8 yards deep? Is Boz kicking them 8 yards deep every time?
No.
I
can tell you who runs them out from 8 yards deep, though.
That would be the Indianapolis Colts.
No.
Yeah.
No, I know a guy that regularly would bring it out from 8 yards deep.
Uh-huh.
Devin Hester.
Yeah, that's something that he would do. I honestly didn't think the Colts, but maybe because they had decent returns in the first half, they're like, you know what? We're going to run this one out no matter what.
I think it was honestly, the guy had some decent returns in the first half, and I think he was feeling it and basically said, Coach, I want to bring it out no matter where it's at. I'm feeling it. And they let him.
Yeah. They needed a spark, and they got it.
Yeah. Yep.
And that long kickoff, I mean, they were set up in the red zone. It didn't take very long to score. The Steelers come out, and my goodness, the third quarter offense, once again, it was a 3 and out. It was an incompletion. Was that one of the off-target throws to Deontay Johnson? I was updating my Najee Harris article and actually didn't see. It was on TV and I heard it, but I didn't see exactly what went wrong on that play.
It could have been.
Yeah. And some people,
I think it was.
There's something coming that people are bringing up that I can't wait to correct, because this is going to be a big talking point to let everyone know how much a lot of the national media are wrong. But we'll get there. So the third quarter offense, but incompletion.
You know what? I think some of that with the third quarter offense. I'm going to get back to the Steelers' last possession in the first half. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Where they got the ball, 12 plays, 68 yards, and settled for the field goal.
Mm-hmm.
The play calling when the Steelers got to 1st and goal, I felt was weak. That we didn't play that the way I would have liked to seen that played. And I think that carried over into the second half.
I'm wondering now if it's starting to get mental with the third quarter, with the players and even maybe the play callers. I don't know. But think about this. Remember how last week so many people, I know Jeff Harmon was one, complaining about the Steelers running on 2nd and long so much? You know what they did on the second play of the third quarter that they had the ball? They ran it on 2nd and 10.
Yes.
And they got 9 yards.
Yes.
And it was beautiful. Then they ran to the line quickly and ran again out of shotgun.
That's what You saw my knee. I don't know if you read my knee jerk.
I edit your knee jerk.
Oh, that's right. You were in there while I'm writing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't see that it was you. I just knew somebody was in there. I figured it was you. That annoyed me to no end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you're going to run and go quick, just run up and do the sneak.
Yeah.
Because you know a run's coming. Why give your running back, where you have to wait for the snap and then hand it to him, where he can't get going forward.
Andy's already 4 yards behind the line.
Yeah. Now, some people are like, well, why'd they go quick? Why'd they do that? Oh, that then made it a 3 and out really fast. To me, I think the Steelers, because it was 2nd and long, they liked the defense they were going to have to go up against on 3rd and short.
Yes.
But if you like that defense that you're going up against on 3rd and short, go run the sneak.
Don't get in a formation that you would expect to see in 2nd and long. So
yeah. So that was just one of those things. And one play killed the drive. Because the Steelers did not put themselves on either of these 3 and outs. They did not put themselves in a bad situation on 3rd down. It was 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2. So then the Steelers have to punt it away. The Colts drive all the way down. They kick a field goal. Oh, penalty, offsides. I still say, hey, those calls sometimes frustrate me the way they call it, because when you watch the replay,
in slow
Cam Sutton got back.
He did, but
you can't do that. You can't do it.
That's hard. You can see that in slow mo. You're going to get that call against you every time, pretty much in real time.
Yeah.
So
in real time, you're not. I mean, because of what happened there. But they go down, take the points off the board. They're there. Then they get the pass interference on Minkah Fitzpatrick. At first, I didn't think it was, but on replay, I saw his arm was wrapped around. I didn't see it live. And then the fumble. And I still wonder how Matt Ryan didn't get that ball, that Chris Wormley was able to come in and get it. That was a huge play in that game.
Actually, if you got a real good shot in there, you could see that as Ryan fell and he was going to fall and just kind of cradle it.
Yeah.
But what it was is as he fell on it, his body hit the side of it and it squirted from him a little bit.
And it kind of hit his hand a little bit, so it didn't go flying out.
Right.
But it kept him from being able to grab it and allowed Wormley to just come in.
And then Wormley just muscled it away from him. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. Because the 3rd quarter was about as bad as it could be in that aspect. That's the only thing that ultimately saved the quarter and the game, because they don't score there. The Steelers 3 and out. That's the one on 3rd down where Kenny Pickett gives the throw. It was a low throw, but it might have been a designed low throw for him to go to the ground like he did on the 2-point conversion. And something with George Pickens, the way it might have been his route where he was doing, his arms were weird.
I wasn't sure what that was all about. But
so that's a play that they should have had that they just didn't execute, killed a drive again. I mean, but it was a 3rd and 2. So it wasn't like it was you put the rookie quarterback in a terrible situation. Then what do? They give up they get the ball back. They give up the touchdown right before the end of the quarter. And I'm already doing my numbers and calculating what the Steelers did on offense in the 3rd quarter. Then they get the ball again. And what do? They get an incompletion and a 1-yard run end of the quarter. They ended up with 18 yards in the 3rd quarter. 18 yards. But as soon as the quarter ended and they went to the 4th quarter, it was just like everything mentally changed. Everything that they couldn't do, they turned around the very first play, 13 yards to George Pickens, add on 15 for the roughing the passer, and they're just off. And they're just off. They're mixing up run, they're mixing up pass, they're mixing up everything, and they go down, score. Kenny Pickett gave the input that he wanted to run that play that Benny Snell scored on, and then they ran a great 2-point conversion. And what did the defense then turn around and do? It was a whole new quarter. They flipped the script on the Colts. They held them to a 3 and out. So would have liked to see
not just 3 and out, no yards.
Yeah, I would have liked to see the Steelers. That was one, that last drive. was that one that was a sack. It was a sack that held him up in
Yeah.
that drive. But the switch that went off from the third to fourth quarter is what I can't get. That it was like it was a whole new team. It was a whole new offense when they went to the fourth quarter. It was just crazy. Well, before I get any more with you on this, because I got some other good stuff to talk about, we're going to take our quick break. If you're here with us, Facebook, YouTube, we're not going anywhere. If you're with us on the audio side, we'll be back right after these messages. And we are back, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, with part 2 of the Scho Bro Show. Behind the steel curtain, editor Dave Schofield still here. Rich is here to start it off this time. He was, we got the show started a little bit as he's there in his office, putting in a late night. Rich, still doing good?
Still breathing in our victory from the other night.
Yeah. So it was really great because I talked about the week before how the Steelers played complementary football, offense and defense. Every time the defense gave up a touchdown to the Bengals in the first half, the Steelers answered with a touchdown. And then they didn't do complementary football in the second half. Once again, they were anti-complementary football in the third quarter. But the fourth quarter, they got right back into it, really made some good things. I want to get into something because this is a big narrative out there. Some people have already said it. The criticism, I know this is the Steelers podcast, but we're going to turn this back to the Steelers because we're going to go back to the first half. The criticism of the Indianapolis Colts, quote unquote, mismanagement of the clock at the end of the game. You know what?
I'm with you. I'm with you on this one.
That was not clock mismanagement. He did a great job. He did a great job. And people that say, oh, we mismanaged. If they convert that fourth down, there's 24 seconds left around the 20-yard line or better, and you've got 2 timeouts. You've got 4 or 5 plays there easy. He was making sure he didn't – 2 things. Wasn't leaving the Steelers any time to answer with a field goal or anything like that, 1. And 2, he was doing everything he could to save all 3 timeouts in case they didn't come through with the conversion so they could use the timeouts, have the Steelers only have a 10-second drive, and at least get the ball back again. It was a good philosophy. And when he made this – now, where I would call some mismanagement was they took some too much time on a couple of those plays. On the sack, it was 36 seconds from snap to snap. They could have gone faster. They could have had a little bit more urgency, but I wouldn't have used the time out there.
Right. After the quarterback scramble, that was the one where they wasted 25 seconds before. Yeah, they went.
Yeah.
Tried to get lined up and go and take the timeout. And the reason it took so long is because I think Saturday came out today and said that he didn't realize that what his personnel was and what their previous formation was that caused the guys to have to really move around, which then
they didn't call a conducive formation for where players ended up the previous play. Yes. Okay. So I could agree with that. But the idea behind it is the opposite of what the Steelers did, which to me, they completely mismanaged the clock at the end of the first half. Yep. Why are you taking timeouts at that point of the game? That's the thing that was driving me crazy. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I'll even tell you exactly where they were. They get the ball with under 4 minutes left. They're moving down. They get in the 2-minute warning. They take a timeout at 1:28 when it's second down and 4 on the Colts 27-yard line. Okay. And then 2 plays later, they take a timeout at 1:17 when it's going to be a 2nd and 8 at the 20. Yeah, because did I say 2nd and 8? Sorry. The first one was 2nd and 4 at the 27, and then they got the first down, and then it was 2nd and 8 at the 20.
Yeah.
The problem when you take the timeouts there, that's what you had 3 timeouts. Let the clock run down inside a minute, because here's the reasoning behind it.
Use the timeouts with less than 30 seconds left to give yourself opportunities to get in the end zone.
I like 45. 45 is kind of if you're inside, if you're in field goal range, I would say inside 45 seconds. If you're inside, let's say in the red zone, like maybe in the 15-yard line, then I'd even do 30 because you know you're not going to need that many plays to score. And if you, especially when you have all three timeouts, because what you ultimately did by calling your timeouts to make sure you had more than enough time. When the Pittsburgh Steelers on 2nd and 10, where Kenny Pickett ran to the 7-yard line for 3 yards, the Colts called the timeout with 105 left. At that moment, that's when you know that you've screwed up. When they're calling timeouts because they know you've given them enough time, that's when you messed up with taking your timeouts too early. Because if you let the clock run down, and let's say you don't, let's even say everything plays out exactly how it does, and you don't take that first timeout. That means when that play occurs on that second timeout, instead of taking it at a minute 17, you're taking it at probably 47 seconds, maybe 50 seconds. I'm fine with that timeout. And that's your first one. Because now, then the Colts are like, oh, the Steelers have plenty of time to do what they're doing at the 10-yard line at that point. And do you really want to use timeouts to help them? Or are you, because you could say that was a risk when Indy took a timeout because it was going to be 3rd and 7 from the 7. Yeah, take the timeout because either they're going to score a touchdown on that play or they're going to kick a field goal on the following play, and you're going to get the ball with just under a minute left. That's giving them too much time. The Steelers, luckily, the defense played well enough that they didn't get in near enough range. They went for the long field goal, and Isaiah Loudermilk blocked it. But to me, you could have played that where they didn't even where even if there was some time, the best option for them was to take a knee. But the Colts, on the other hand, they were playing, we are going to keep this ball. The reason I'm saying it wasn't clock mismanagement, tell me if this is right. I know I'm kind of preaching a little bit. But here's the two aspects of clock mismanagement. You do one of two things. Either one, you run out of time, or two, you allow too much time for the other team.
Right. And
did the Colts run out of time? No, they did not run out of time. They got stopped. They did not convert. So it wasn't any kind of clock mismanagement. The Steelers stopped them on 4th down. That's what ended it. The Colts didn't do no mismanagement of the clock led to the Colts loss. It was the Steelers stop and the Colts non-conversion, whichever way you want to look at it, that ended that drive. The game did not end because they didn't have enough time left. So it's not clock mismanagement because they would have had plenty of time to run. I mean, do you think they would have needed more than 4 or 5 plays from the 20-yard line?
Right.
I mean, maybe one more, but I mean, that's plenty.
Right. If they convert the 4th down there, you're talking they probably convert it and use a timeout. So then they've got one timeout left. And they've got 20 almost 30 seconds left, probably 28, 29 seconds, and still have a timeout, which means they can still make one more play somewhere in the middle of the field from the 20-yard line coming in and be able to stop the clock.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that it was I don't want folks to get the wrong idea and me saying no, it was smart. I didn't. No, I don't want to say that what they did was the once
smartest. You make the decision to go with that strategy, you've got to go with it.
Correct, and you got to go with it the whole way.
Yeah,
and they had to look at it early in that drive. I mean, when they converted the 4th and 3 at the 37 of Pittsburgh, it was. At that point in time, you're thinking, okay, I want to have all my timeouts because if we don't convert this 4th and 3,
it's not over.
It's not over.
Yeah.
Now, because they ended up taking that first timeout at 30 seconds left, right? Because of that, when they didn't convert the 4th and 3, game over.
Yeah.
because they didn't have enough timeouts to stop it.
Yeah.
You know, but really the play for the Steelers was, so if you really want to stop and think about it, the play for the Steelers was made by Alex Highsmith on that third down play.
Oh, there was more than one made on that series.
No, but what I'm saying though is
Yeah.
that third down play forcing them to take that timeout.
Yeah.
Then after that play, like if they convert the first down on third down and take that timeout, they're sitting really pretty. I mean, really pretty. Because now you're talking they're the 20, probably 23 or in yard line, 2 timeouts and a new set of downs.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff they can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Alex Highsmith stopping Jonathan Taylor on that play really, then Highsmith forced the change of strategy onto the Colts. You know,
because then there wasn't going to be enough time. They had to do it there.
Correct. So you said once you pick something, you go with it.
Until you can't anymore.
Until you can't anymore. And Alex Highsmith made a really nice play, so they couldn't anymore.
Yeah, and so with the Highsmith play, it was also the sack, because that was really big, because the Steelers needed a nice negative play there to just give them a little bit of cushion of what it was going to take to get that first down. Yes, Matt Ryan, if you call, I mean, he scrambled. I mean, he probably looked a little bit faster than Ben Roethlisberger did last year, if you know what I mean, at times. But he did that scramble. But think about what that scramble does if it wasn't right after that sack. If it wasn't that they were faced with a 2nd and 17. So you get the sack, then it has the scramble, but they were set up there, well, on 3rd and 3 to, hand off to the one of the top 3 running backs in the league, get the first down. Then we're calling our timeouts. They knew they were going to call timeout at that play. They just assumed it would be after the first down.
Right.
That was it.
And they came up to run it. I understood what they were. What they were wanting to try to do after that 2nd 17 play is because they had the Steelers on 2nd 17. They had the Steelers in, I don't know, nickel or dime, right? Had them in something like that. And they thought, we've got the defense we want them to have out on the field for us to run the ball. Where they did the favor for the Steelers was not being able to get up onto the ball so quickly. Wasted 20.
It was, I think I had it. It was it was 20 some seconds from snap to snap.
Right.
Because you got to remember how long the play took. Because
right, it was 29.
I mean,
it was
how
29,
long did it take Ryan to run 14 yards?
Right, it was 29 seconds from snap to snap.
Yeah,
and the fact that it took them a second to line up at least gave the Steelers' defensive front the chance to gather themselves.
Yeah.
Alex Highsmith had a second to make sure he was lined up where he wanted to be. He looked at the offensive alignment, and it was almost like he figured out what they were going to try to do, and he made the play.
Like he knew what they were going to run,
Yes.
Just one of those infamous things. To me, between the sack and then that stop on that run, those were the defensive plays, of the drive, possibly the game, because that's what won them the game, making that stop. So to me, what that was all about was stopping it. And when I say that I thought it was about clock management, I get why they didn't take the timeouts there, because you don't mind the time getting down because you don't want to leave it for the Steelers. But I'm curious. I think they could have stopped the clock on the sack because it was also a fumble. But because I think it was an obvious recovery, they didn't and let it go. Because that could have actually helped the Colts out a lot with their time stuff if they had stopped it because but that actually cost a little bit of time too, because they went to set the ball and then they had to reset the ball because you had to go back to the original spot of the fumble.
Yep.
So that, honestly, the Colts could have they could take a little bit of issue with that, but they didn't run out of time. They just got stopped.
Yeah.
So time ended up not being an issue with all that stuff. But man, so those were two different ways of playing out the end of a half. And I didn't like the way the Steelers did in the first half. The Colts almost got 3 points from it, but the defense played well enough that they did it. But my point is that the defense shouldn't have even been put in a situation where they had to keep them from getting into field goal range. And then, of course, ultimately the Steelers, it didn't matter if there was 20 seconds left or a minute and 20 seconds left when they got that stop. That it was going to do it. So the time didn't matter there. But ultimately, the defense got the stops when they needed to in the fourth quarter. The offense, answered. Kenny Pickett got this was his first come from behind victory. It was not his first fourth quarter victory because they were tied 2 weeks before whenever they scored in the fourth quarter. So I was really happy with how this with this progressed. I think the offense is showing improvement every week, specifically Kenny Pickett. Real quick, offensive line. I kind of had a disagreement with Jeff Hartman. He put Dan Moore Jr. in the losers list. I'm like, the dude gives up a sack where Kenny Pickett steps up into it. It wasn't a good play for Moore. He let the guy get him lean to the outside to really beat him hard to the inside, and Kenny Pickett happened to be moving that way. It was just one of those things. But after that,
and he got flagged for a hold.
Got flagged for a hold early.
Yeah.
But after that, he really turned around and played well for the rest of the game. So, we take, Kenny Pickett had a couple bad throws. Yeah. Dan Moore Jr. had a couple of bad plays in the first half. But other than he was the highest graded pass blocker for the Steelers of the week. I was shocked. It was who was at the bottom of the list for the Steelers was James Daniels and Kevin Dotson. I don't agree with PFF. This is going to be an article that's going to be out on the website tomorrow. They had the Steelers pass blocking grades as really high, and their run blocking grades is actually very low. I don't get that. When it didn't matter who was running the ball and the Steelers were running well. And Jeffrey Benedict put this in the Slack channel. He's like, that's the problem with PFF is they look at individual matchups and not realizing that it might not look like the individual guys are winning the one-on-one battles on a play, but the unit as a whole is occupying the right people for the play to be successful.
Or like there was one play in particular where I actually thought of PFF. It was a run that basically went very nowhere. I think it gained a yard.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they scored Dan Moore Jr. very low on that. Mm-hmm. Okay. What's funny was they did a replay of the run on the game, on the television, broadcast. And I noticed that it was set up where Dotson and Moore were supposed to hit a double team on, I think it was Ngakoue or somebody there. And then Dotson was to peel off and go second level. Mm-hmm. The problem was Ngakoue crashed the line directly at Dotson.
That's what zone blocking is. Two guys are supposed to block the zone, the first level and the second level. It's not predetermined who's going to go get him. It's based on where he goes and how you can block it. Sometimes they go so hard one way, the other guy's got to go make that block.
Right. And Dodson peeled off, and Ngakoue already had the angle or whatever so bad on Moore, and the runner tried to follow Dodson, and it went nowhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, Dodson, you guys would have been better off to try to hold the double team and get 3 yards than to try to get to the second level for more yards and get 1.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was all in all, it was an exciting game. I started to get really discouraged in the third quarter because did you have the infamous "here we go again"?
Oh yeah.
But they turned it around.
3 and outs on the offense, and the defense basically letting them march up and down the field, which the defense was letting them move the ball pretty much at will. If it wasn't for that fumble.
Yeah.
That was the only positive thing. The fumble was the only positive thing that happened for the defense in the third quarter.
You are correct. That's really about it. But then you go to the fourth quarter,
Which, by the way, I'm going to say one more thing about the fumble, because there were some folks online. I got into some of the chats on some of the articles, and somebody, I think it was on the one where where Jeffrey graded, and somebody was like, the defense, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. The defense was terrible in the second half, and particularly the third quarter, because they were trying to bring up, and the defense with the fumble. And I'm like, the defense didn't cause
that fumble.
They were gifted
that
fumble.
Yeah.
Nobody hit any player or anything to cause that fumble. The Colts botched it, and Wormley was good enough coming through. On the bright side, it looked like Wormley would have blown that play up and it wouldn't have gone anywhere. But was lucky enough to get through there and then get his hands on the ball while it was on the ground. So, we didn't, offensively and defensively, the third quarter was poor.
Well, here, the Colts had 19 first downs in the game. 19. 12 of them were in the third quarter.
Yeah.
It was just, it was one of those things. But when the defense needed to come out and get the stop, they got the 3 and out when they needed to do it. They ultimately got the stop to finish the game. And
correct. Just like the offense, when the defense gives up that second touchdown and we get down a point, the offense comes right. The offense then came out and answered with a touchdown drive of their own.
Yeah.
So that's the positive I'm taking from it.
Yes.
The negative is just that third quarter was pitiful.
Yeah, it was. And that's something, Jeff Hartman brought that up on the Winners and Losers podcast this morning, that when he filled in for me when I was sick and he did the Stat Geek, he talked about, the Steelers, they're not on offense. They're not good in the first quarter, but they're even worse in the third quarter. And that was several weeks ago. And we've seen it really bad the last 2 games. And think about it, even against the Saints, they didn't score in the third quarter.
Yeah.
So the Steelers have no points in the third quarter since the bye. I had a feeling they would have a quarter that they didn't score. I don't know if you heard this in the post-game show. Because DraftKings went live in Maryland, I was showing you some of the stuff where I got the free bets.
I listened to the post-game show this morning while I was working. And yes, I heard that you got
that. I had a 10.
On a 10.
I just went crazy just to do it, to be crazy, because I wanted to see how much it would be where I would win if they all hit. And I went a 10-leg parlay, 10 legs. And I picked them all myself, and I hit 9 of them because Pat Fairmouth didn't hit 50 yards. I mean, I had the Steelers points. I had the touchdowns. I had, I had another one that I did hit. Oh, no, I had another one that was a 4-leg that I missed one. The only thing that I missed was a Kenny Pickett passing touchdown. He just needed one. But this one, it had Kenny Pickett rushing yards. It had the Steelers go a quarter without scoring. The Colts go a quarter without scoring. That they, a bunch of crazy stuff. Would have won me $500, and that's all I missed it. But you know what? If the Steelers give up a touchdown there and go to overtime, I might have been $500 richer. I might have lost one of the other bets. I don't care, because to me, the Steelers getting the win was more important.
That's right.
So we focused a ton on this game. I didn't know that we were going to go as long, because I know you need to get home and everything else. Right. And here we are still going. We focused on this game because it was 24 hours ago. And the story. I mean, were we into the fourth quarter yet? At 10:30 Monday night, I'm not sure, because we might have been reliving some of those bad third quarter vibes, because it was exactly 24 hours from it. But let's go ahead and hit this week. The Steelers go to Atlanta. They're playing back-to-back games in a dome. They went from being slight underdogs to slight favorites. Atlanta lost a heartbreaker in Washington when they were there to score, and the ball gets tipped up and intercepted in the end zone. Rich, what are your thoughts? Are you ready to give a score? While you think of your score, remember, don't put your scores out there in the live chat yet. We'll get them all in just a minute. I'm going to tell you where I'm concerned is even though it's one day, it's a short week going on the road. It's a short week going on the road. So you have to take that into consideration. And it's not a familiar opponent. It's an opponent that you only play every 4 years. So unfamiliar opponent on the road, short week, but maybe the unfamiliarity with the Falcons, with the Steelers will work to their advantage more. I don't know. So it's not like this is just a slam dunk. I do like the way the offense is going. There's still going to be challenges with it. Rich, what is your score prediction for Sunday at 1:00 in Atlanta?
Score prediction. Steelers do a good job on running the football, and I am going to go with Steelers 23, Falcons 17.
23-7, very close to this week's score.
Very close.
I mean, and that's the reason we get. I had the title of the show is the short stack. Can the Steelers stack a win? So Rich is saying the Steelers are going to stack the win. You all now have the opportunity.
You know what? Yeah. I might want to change that a little bit. It might be like 20-17.
Okay, 20-17. Okay, and you still have the right to change it for the article. So if
I'm going to leave it now at 23, but I leave my right to change it. If I do change it, probably be to 20-17, and it'll be based on what I'm seeing injury report.
Okay, there you go. I get you. I got you. So when you go to put this in the live chat, if you just put a score, we're going to assume you mean Steelers win. Put your scores out there. We'll bring them up. Thomas Riley, he was ready to go. Steelers 33, Falcons 19. Thinking that the offense is going to break out even a little bit more. Here we go. Claude Bishop says 27-17 black and gold. Oh, whoop, missed it. Daniel Red says 23-21 Steelers. Kevin Brokenborough says 27-13 Steelers. Kathy Forrid. Hey, Kathy, hopefully you received your book back by now. Shoot me an email. Let me know that you got that. She has 24-13 Steelers. Harvey Stone Jr. has Steelers 31-21. Thomas Eads the fourth says 21-14 Steelers. DJ Ease, I don't know if that's right or not. 31-13 Steelers. You tell me every week and I still mess it up. 31-13 Steelers. Jay Hanna has 23-22 Steelers. John Walter has 24-20 Steelers. They said sleepwalking to another win. We're much later tonight than we normally have, so we probably don't have nearly as many scores. Oh, here's Sherry Richards. Can't miss Sherry. Sherry's here every show as well. 27-16 Steelers. To me, anytime you're talking about a Steelers game, there's going to be some field goals thrown in there just because the Steelers are going to not be able to finish off every drive. I'd be shocked if the Steelers have a game this year that are all touchdowns and no field goals. They haven't had one yet. Well, trying to think, definitely not in a winning because it was just 3 against Buffalo. The Eagle, I can't remember, but that's something that I look for in a lot of these games with the Steelers and their opponents, because I think the Steelers defense can often hold teams to field goals. Reginald Rivers has 27-20 Steelers, and Dusk Thunder 9 has Falcons 17 Steelers 21. Run game plays well. I think that's the key. With the Steelers can run the ball. That's kind of the magic ingredient that people are like, oh, well, Kenny Pickett, oh my goodness, who thinks he's going to be the future? He only threw for 174 yards. He only had to throw the ball 28 times.
Yep. Hold on.
Yeah.
Bringing that up. That's where I got into one on the live chat
today. Yeah. You haven't checked it. You know why? I responded to the person that responded to you.
Because I'll tell you what, I went in and I pulled the stats, and Ben Roethlisberger's rookie season, of the 14 games in the regular season he played, 10 of the 14 he threw for less than 200 yards.
Yeah,
3 of those 10,
was like under 150,
under 140.
Under 140,
they were all in the 130s.
Yeah.
The interesting thing there is we had a dominant offensive line and some good running game and
a great defense.
Great defense.
Yeah.
They were all wins.
Yes. Well, when the response was, well, that was 20 years ago. The NFL's, you know what? Just because the whole NFL is different doesn't mean that's a cookie cutter, that's all you can do to win. Because guess what? I came back with the answer of the Ravens aren't prescribing to that. Lamar, I was okay. It was Lamar Jackson throwing when he throws over 200. I can't remember the numbers, but it was like if it was over 220 yards, he's only done it 3 times this season, and the Ravens are 1-2 in those games. If it's over 250 yards, he's done it only 2 of them, and they're 0-2. When he has to throw for a bunch of yards, they don't win. It doesn't mean just because the NFL is different and there's a lot of passing doesn't mean that has to be how every team has to do it. Because look at the Steelers. I mean, look at even from way back and even more recent. Look at Ben Roethlisberger in the postseason. There was a gap in there. I can't remember because I've moved on from Ben Roethlisberger because we study, we love Big Ben, but we're also focused on the Steelers now. And there was a range of like 100 yards in there of where he'd never hit in the postseason. He would either be like over 300 and some yards, and every one of them was a loss, or he'd be under. It was like over 350 yards, but if he was under 250, they were wins.
Yep.
That's really, when you look at it, that's the NFL. When quarterbacks don't have to throw for that many yards, that's where it comes down to. I've got more scores to get to, but that was a great point, Rich.
Get them real quick.
Yep, Demetrios, 27-20 Steelers. James Tresvant, sorry we didn't see you at the game, James. But 29 a couple weeks ago, 29-17 Steelers. CD says Pittsburgh 31, Atlanta 6. Let's see, because James already got yours, and I think that's it. So. Yep. Want to know, I think tomorrow we get the cutting room floor because it got pushed back a day. It's going to be thrown in as extra podcast. Other than that, I think we're back to being on track from the condensed down schedule with everything. So you'll be back to the regular audio and YouTube shows because, there was a hangover earlier tonight. And the preview's back on Thursday. I'm happy to be back in that one. I didn't get to do it Sunday because of our the visitation and everything with the funeral that we had. Make sure you're checking out the website because we still got a lot of stuff coming at you. We really do. I tell you what, I'm ready to get out of here. I'm zapped for being up late last night. I know you got to get home. So, Rich, give us your final thoughts as we head out of here and as the Steelers look to stack some wins on a short week.
There you go. That's what I like to see. We've had no problem. We've stacked some losses here and there this year. We've yet to stack some wins.
Yeah.
This is a good week to get that first stacking of wins. It's a good opportunity playing a team that, if you look at it on paper, it should be, at least very, very competitive with. So it's just up to which Steeler team are we going to see? And can we continue to play good complementary football? Title of the show is the short stacks. Right now I'm thinking pancakes. I got to go home and get some dinner. Can't wait.